how can you say to love your neighbor? How can you say to your neighbor, let me take the speck out of your eye while there's a log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you can see clearly to take the speck out of your neighbor's eye. That's a quote from Jesus in the Bible. And I have a question for Jesus. Has he ever had a speck in his eye? Because my God, what a pain in the ass. I had a speck in my eye earlier today, and it was nagging, and it was just so annoying, and it wouldn't go away. It just kept nagging and nagging and nagging, and no matter what you do, you just can't get that speck out of your eye. I can't even imagine having a log in my eye. You pull down the eyelashes, you try to make your eyes water, you squint, you do all sorts of weird facial expressions to try to get that speck out of your eye, and it just won't go. Obviously, this is a metaphor that Jesus is using, saying not to judge others when you have your own problems, but some people need to be judged, and as Pittsburgh's moral compass, I'm just the guy to do it. You're listening to the River's Edge Radio Network, Pittsburgh's voice for local music. We're broadcasting at riversedgepgh.com, powered by NJL WebTech, honest, practical, and affordable. You can go to njlwebtech.com for all of your web servicing needs. I'm Brian Crawford, and across the board, we have the wonderful Tara Molesworth, who is behind the board and making everything run here today. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Good, good. I would be great, but my computer is now frozen.
Oh.
Fantastic. The toy drive was a huge success. We had a toy drive. If you've been following us on Facebook and Twitter and watching the show over the last few days, we had a toy drive at Hambones this past Sunday, and it was a great success. We were given some toys to donate to Children's Hospital, and we also were given over $200 worth of donations that we were able to buy toys for. You can check out all of the cool stuff on Facebook. All of the performances are actually still on Facebook via the Facebook Live function on our page, the Facebook page at Rivers Edge PGH. And it was really cool. We had listeners all across the country, everywhere. It was awesome. We even had listeners in California, so we literally did reach shore to shore. We had listeners in Philadelphia, listeners all over. It was great. Really a fantastic cause, and the Children's Hospital was ecstatic. And we went to Five Below to buy a lot of the gifts, and we were able to get just an obscene amount of gifts, and really cool gifts as well for the kids at Children's Hospital. We have a lot on the show, a lot available today on the show, a lot to talk about. We have a few topics that I want to run by you. The Confederate flag, is it time to ditch it? Or does it have a place in American culture? What is that place? When do people go too far when referring to or using or symbolizing the Confederate flag? And what is the Confederate flag? There is a Confederate flag issue that has occurred, and it has taken place in Plum School District. We're going to talk about that. We have Matt Gajtka on. He's going to talk sports with us and some interesting developments that have been going on in the sporting world. I'm sure he's going to talk about Andrew McCutcheon and his the fact that Andrew McCutcheon is staying here in the Steel City. So we've got that on board, and we have a weird story about condoms and trees. So yes, there is a relation between condoms and trees, and we're not talking about the wood below the belt. So lots of good stuff. I'm excited. I really, really, really enjoyed the Hambones event. We had probably at least 400 some viewers on Facebook, and then also listeners on the audio stream as well. It was a packed house, and it really, really was pretty fantastic. And it was great to see them put this together. And I'm very excited because we've been welcomed back to Hambones on the 31st of December for the acoustic brunch, because New Year's Eve is on a Sunday this year, and we're going to broadcast a benefit for the Greater Pittsburgh Community Food Bank. So that's coming up on the 31st. So lots of good stuff. This Civil War thing is interesting, and it's interesting that this is coming up again. A lot of people are going to trace this to the election of Donald Trump with a lot of the happenings that have been going on in school districts in this area and across the country, with kids shouting about white power and everything else. And I don't know if it's... I think partially it's Donald Trump's fault, but I think a lot of it has to do with the media's portrayal of what he said in the way that they've spliced his speeches up as well. But there's a lot of interesting factors to this, and there's a lot of lacking in knowledge about what the Civil War was, who fought in it, why they fought in it. There's just so much confusion and so much misinformation on both sides, really. There's misinformation that comes down from the history class as well, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. I'm excited. Are you excited, Tara?
Yeah. About what in particular?
About the show. We've got lots of stuff to talk about. I know the show's going to be great. What did you do this weekend?
I was sick yesterday, so I slept on the couch all day. And then, actually, I did a show for the Carnegie Mellon Grad Student Association. They had a big party at the museum. So I was there running sound.
Which
with
museum?
Some bands.
Was it the Carnegie Museum?
It was, the whole thing was open for them. So you could go take pictures with dinosaurs, and you could play blackjack, and the wine flowed.
Nice. Yeah. That's always a good thing.
I know. It must have been a crazy budget.
Did you ever go into the actual music hall that is attached to that museum?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to see a show.
Yeah, just or even just to walk through it.
Yeah. Definitely.
I feel like it is probably one of the most underutilized venues in the city of Pittsburgh. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's never anything there.
I don't know the answer to that. I've seen several things there.
Are there? Because I maybe it's not advertised well enough.
Or maybe it's not the kinds of shows that you seek out. And not really the kind of shows I seek out either.
Well, what do they have?
I saw Television there. Do you know the band Television from the 70s?
No.
So, they basically just played their Marquee Moon is the name of their album, and they kind of just played that all the way through, 40 years after it came out or whatever.
They have an unbelievable lobby there as well. Just everything about that place is fantastic.
Yeah. I think they use it for, weddings and parties and stuff, too.
They do it a lot for graduation ceremonies and stuff like that,
sure.
But I feel like that's so underutilized. I feel like it's such a fantastic venue, and there's a lot of other venues that maybe aren't as acoustically sound that get a lot more attention than that building, which is just a piece of art, really.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I agree.
Fantastic. We have Matt Gajtka coming up right around the break. I'm excited. And one thing that I did mention the other day, and I want to reiterate it here for those of you listening now, if you didn't get a chance to check out what happened, what transpired at Hambones yesterday morning, you have to check it out at the River's Edge page. It's on the like feature there, and you can look back at some of the great musicians and the great art and the great music that went on at Hambones. But one of the great things about the River's Edge is we are there in the community. We're doing things like this, and I guarantee you, old-fashioned radio would never go broadcast an acoustic brunch on Butler Street in Lawrenceville, and it's to their detriment. You're listening to Pittsburgh's Voice for Local Music, The River's Edge.
Would you be interested in developing conscious choice? Would you be interested in creating reactions rather than waiting for one to come? Would you be interested in combining serendipity and synchronicity? Would you be interested in making 1 + 1 = 3? Would you be interested in finding out about full impact mindfulness? If so, I challenge you to join myself, Jim Ellermeyer, a cognitive behavioral health therapist, every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. on the River's Edge, where we will challenge you to allow us to help you help yourself to fully participate in your life. Let the adventure begin.
Welcome back to the River's Edge Radio Network. We have breaking news, actually. This just in. The recount effort in Pennsylvania is at a halt currently. A federal judge has come down and denied the recount request by Green Party candidate Jill Stein. So that is breaking news. I'll try to get more information to you on that as the show goes on. But right now, we have Matt Gajtka of Gajk's Got Game, heard every Friday here at riversedgepgh.com at 8 a.m. and of dkpittsburghsports.com. Matt, how are you?
Outstanding, I guess. It's a small jump down in importance from a national recount to the Pirates and the Penguins and the Steelers.
But we do have big news with the Pirates, right?
With the Pirates, well, it was a week of, I don't want to call it non-news, but the thing that was supposedly about to happen, an Andrew McCutchen trade, did not happen. So that led to a fairly awkward Pirate Fest, I guess, for a lot of folks. And Andrew McCutchen took a whole bunch of questions from fans on stage at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center this weekend about whether he's going to be around. And really, he doesn't know as much as anybody does. He doesn't know more than we do, I should say. He was, for the most part, checking in on social media last week. I was down in Washington, D.C., reporting on the MLB winter meetings where a lot of that player movement goes on, whether it be free agency or trades. But he finally touched base with Pirates GM Neil Huntington this past weekend at Pirate Fest. So he's got the update. Looks like he's going to be with the Pirates for at least the start of the 2017 season. But I suppose anything could happen, and us media types got a chance to fire some questions Kutch's way. Thought he handled it really well. Said he wanted to be a Pirate for life, even though that is quite unlikely considering the system that's set up in Major League Baseball. Yeah,
very true. And especially with the Pirates, you know that they are slow to pull that purse string. So, right. They are not the type of team to spend even close to league average. Part of that's the market size. Part of that is the lack of capital from the Bob Nutting-led group that owns the team. So those two things conspire to have them be very cold-blooded and rational when it comes time for contracts to be up. And McCutchen still has 2 more years under his current contract, one guaranteed and then one the team option year of 2018. So he could still be in Pittsburgh for a couple of more seasons, but I think a long-term extension beyond that is very unlikely, and we are probably going to see McCutchen in a different uniform at some point in the next couple of years. Do you think there's a way that the Pirates can rebound and make the best use of McCutchen while he is here and try to take a run for the division, or do you think with the strength of the Cubs and the strength of the division that's going to be difficult to do? Oh, it'll certainly be difficult. I think we all saw how good the Cubs are this past season, not just in the playoffs, but in the regular season when they won more than 100 games. That's a very, very tough benchmark to achieve in baseball these days, and there's a little more parity in the game because almost every front office now is really intelligent and, as I mentioned, rational like the Pirates try to be with their moves. So the gap is closed in some ways, but it continues to be large in terms of finances. And the Cubs have the might of the Chicago Tribune behind them, and they also have a really sharp general manager in Theo Epstein. So they have it all going for them, and they have a bunch of young talent there, a team that's not going to get any worse. I don't think it'll be getting any worse. It'll certainly be holding its level at the very least for the next couple of seasons. So that's the challenge for the Pirates, who still, despite their push to relevance this decade, have not won a division title since 1992. And that's your best route to give yourself a chance to win a World Series, because you can skip that whole wild card craziness that they've gone through 3 times. And you look at the Pirates roster, they're going to be relying a great deal on young pitching, young starting pitching in particular in 2017. I think the lineup is still playoff caliber. The position player talent is still up there. And who knows, there's a good deal of variability with young pitchers, even someone like Jameson Tyott, who had a really sharp MLB debut this past season. But I saw a McCutchen trade, or any kind of trade, as the Pirates' best chance to add some major league quality starting pitching, a guy or guys who have done it at this level and could be relied upon. And I still see that as their biggest need. And I don't really see too many guys out there on the free agent market that could possibly fix it. Maybe Ivan Nova, if you believe in what he did with the Pirates late this season after coming aboard via trade. But it's a thin market, and that forces Neil Huntington to get creative in my mind. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how things develop with them and see how they're able to keep rolling. I read recently that Neil Huntington was basically taking a shot at the people in the media and the fan base who basically have alleged that the Pirates are putting profit above winning. Do you think that maybe he was unwise to make that comment? What are your thoughts on his comments, and what are your thoughts on the allegations, which really do exist?
Actually, that was not Neil Huntington. It was
that
Frank Coonelly,
Frank
at
Coonelly?
Pirate
Yes,
Fest.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. He's, and if you don't, if the listeners don't know who he is, he's the team president / CEO. So with principal owner Bob Nutting not present again at Pirate Fest, I think it would have done a great deal of good for him to at least show up and show his face after a really disappointing season for the Pirates. But Coonelly is ownership's proxy in these situations, if you will, and yeah, he responded, a rather fiery response from Frank, who is a very competitive guy and someone who does not tend to let slights go by the board without being addressed. And he feels that some of the columns that are out there, some of the perspectives that are out there in the local media, including one from my boss, Dan Kovacevic, at the website, he pulls no punches on what he believes to be a Pirates management group that is not committed to winning a World Series, not committed to putting the team over the top, at least compared to their desire to run a successful business. So those two things could go hand in hand, but in many people's views, the almighty dollar reigns supreme at Pirates headquarters. And Coonelly said that he was offended by what he called a narrative, and I'm not sure if I agree that there is some conspiracy to construct this narrative. I think a lot of folks in the media and countless fans have come upon this perspective honestly and through observation of the team's activities over the past decade plus, especially under Bob Nutting's reign. So Coonelly said that he was offended by that, and that he's one of the most competitive guys that he knows, and I guess we'll have to take his word for it there, but that's the thing. It's his word versus the fans' word in this case, and I guess some people in the media. And Frank was not very diplomatic about it. He said that he fights back against that, and he fights every day to disprove what he called the offensive narrative.
Yeah. Matt, what else is going on? We have a few more minutes here.
Well, the Penguins remain in action. They'll be at home for a couple of games this week. They play Arizona on Monday, tonight. Sorry. My dad brain engaging again. I forgot what day it was. But yeah. Not a lot of, me and you have a lot in common.
Yeah, the lack
of
the sleep deprivation. Yeah, we share that.
It is amazing that we're able to be coherent here.
Yeah.
On this beautiful Monday morning. But the Penguins are in an interesting race in the Metropolitan Division, and the Penguins themselves are very interesting because, Brian, they've come back from multiple goals down to win 6 games already this year. And that type of thing doesn't happen in the defense-oriented NHL these days. In fact, it didn't really happen that much before defense reigned supreme, too. It's really difficult to do that, but games are 60 minutes long, so I'm not sure how much I would be stressing out about that if I were a Penguins fan, because while they do fall behind, they do, in the end, appear to be the better team, and there's no guarantee you're going to be able to conjure up these rallies at a moment's notice, but it sure does make it fun to watch. And they are allowing quite a bit of goals against and shots against and attempts against, but they're also an offensive juggernaut. So this throws back to, depending on how old you are, the late 80s, early 90s Penguins, or even the Penguins of a couple of years back, 2011-12, 2012-13, when they led the NHL in goals before things started to dry up a bit. And of course, the Mike Johnston era slowed things down even more before Mike Sullivan kicked it back into gear. I think part of it, Brian, is just that it's tough to maintain full defensive intensity over the course of a 6-month regular season. I think we'll see the Penguins get a little more serious about their own end as we get closer to the playoffs. But as for right now, they're able to bludgeon teams to death with their raw offensive power, and it's a blast to watch. I love that type of hockey.
And Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, because my job keeps me away from the television, unfortunately. But if memory serves, last year they did come back from behind a lot, right?
They came from behind, I believe, 5 times under Mike
times.
Sullivan after the midway point of the season. And by the way, today is the 1-year anniversary of his hiring
nice.
as Penguins coach. So it's been a pretty good first year for him. It's not like this is something entirely new, but in the playoffs last year, there wasn't a lot of that. They pretty much had control from the start in most of those wins. So it's different right now. And like I said, it makes it a little more entertaining to watch because the trajectory of these games has been very unpredictable. And I'd like to mention the Steelers before I go off, too. I feel like I glossed over them, but they have now won 4 games in a row. Remember, they were 4-5.
Mm-hmm.
They lost 4 in a row. Now, they've won 4 in a row. They beat the Bills. They handled them quite routinely up in Buffalo, despite a couple of really ugly interceptions from Ben Roethlisberger. So they take that snowy win home with them, and we still continue on track for that showdown on Christmas Day at Heinz Field, Steelers and Ravens. The Ravens are playing well lately, too, and the Steelers have to take care of the Bengals next week to make sure that matchup in 2 weeks means something. But the Bengals are, I don't want to say tanking, but they've fallen off. They're having a really disappointing year. So we continue on that track, and it's more of a forward-looking approach for a lot of Steelers fans right now. It appears to be the playoffs before the playoffs. They'll begin at Heinz Field in 13 days.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Thank you very much. I appreciate it as always.
Oh, thank you for the time, Brian. And we'll talk to folks again later this week on the network.
Matt, are we able to announce what's coming today, or do you want to keep that quiet?
I'll go ahead and do it. Wednesday night, offering up a Penguins post-game show, Facebook Live exclusive on the River's Edge. So thanks for reminding me of that again.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, trying to get my bearings, and always wanted to host a post-game show, and I think that I can bring a different perspective to that whole genre. Not the Penguins Radio Network doesn't do a good job, but I'd like to bring a little bit more of the advanced analytics into it and give you a different perspective on the Penguins game. So looking to get that into gear, and we'll give it a test run on Wednesday night. So we'd love to have you with us if you're listening right now. Again, Facebook Live will be the platform for that.
You can also click the live page at riversedgepgh.com and watch it there as well.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways you can access it. And Brian, thank you for the platform as always. It's been fun working with you.
Yeah, looking forward to catching the show. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
That's Matt Gajtka of DKPittsburghSports.com. Before we take a break, I want to get into this recount news because this is big news. And here, this is coming from the Associated Press. It says a federal judge is rejecting the Green Party-backed request to recount paper ballots in Pennsylvania's presidential election won by Republican Donald Trump. And it says, this is kind of weird wording here, and scan some counties' election systems for signs of hacking. The rejection by U.S. District Judge Paul Diamond on Monday is the latest roadblock to a Pennsylvania recount. It is part of a border effort by the Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein to recount votes in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Trump won all 3 states narrowly over Democrat Hillary Clinton. It says Trump beat Clinton in Pennsylvania by about 44,000 votes out of 6 million cast. Now, it did come out in the last day or so from the CIA that they didn't say that Russia hacked the voting equipment, but they did say that Russia favored presidential candidate Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton in that election. And it came out as shocking news, and I really don't know how shocking that revelation is. I don't know if Russia had a hand in hacking the system, but to me it's just common sense that they would want Donald Trump to win over those 2 candidates. From the Russian perspective, Hillary Clinton has been very tough with Russia, and Hillary Clinton has also advocated a no-fly zone over Syria, which, if you listen to any Russian media or read any Russian news, you would gather their feelings on this no-fly zone is that this could potentially lead to a war between Russia and the United States. They definitely are not looking to take that situation lightly if it would have occurred. So I don't think it's a surprise that Russia was involved, and now since the CIA has came out with this statement that Russia favored presidential candidate Donald Trump, 4 senators in the U.S. Senate, including 2 Republicans, one of which is John McCain, who Donald Trump had some words with during the campaign. He is one of the 4 senators who is calling for an investigation into the voting process to see if hacking did occur. I actually was very interested to see how this recount would have went if they would have allowed it to go through. And the reason why I say that is it was reported, and I know there was a possible suit that was going to be coming out of Westmoreland County over votes cast, but in the opposite direction, where people were going in and voting for Donald Trump or straight Republican, and the votes were actually switching to Hillary Clinton on the presidential ballot. Now, my source from within the Republican Party out in Westmoreland County said that they did not suspect any foul play that led to the switching of votes, but rather a glitch in the machines, which are, I believe, a decade old out in Westmoreland County and needing replaced. So I would have been interested to see what would have happened with this recount. The suspicion and the belief is that there would be more votes tallied up for Hillary Clinton and maybe lessen the Donald's lead or even have the vote go towards Hillary Clinton, but I almost wonder if it would have went the other way and they would have found more votes for Donald Trump, given what went on in Westmoreland County and Butler and some of these other outlying areas that are outside of the city of Pittsburgh and really going into an area where Donald Trump was expected to do well and Republicans historically do well. So it's interesting. I don't know where this would have went. I really was actually kind of interested in hearing where this went. I'm interested to hear what the motives were really behind the Green Party's involvement in this. There are some allegations that this was a way to maybe bolster some notoriety and bolster some cash to the party, but we may never know. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I am going to hold the Plum, we'll see. I'm either going to hold the Plum students or the Plum parents accountable to the values we hold dear here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's up next here on the River's Edge.
They did leech people up until, like 1910 or so, I think.
How do you know that? Like till 1910 or so.
Well, it's for reading.
I used to get girls till
medical
1910 or so. I used to have girls give me booty calls till 1910 or so.
Hey, Moneybags, tune into Funny Money at 7 a.m. Thursdays.
Did you hear Tom? He said 7 a.m. Tune in.
It is now time to hold the punks from Plum accountable to the timeless values we hold dear in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The values of virtue, the values of liberty, and the values of independence. Virtue. These kids, if you do not know, were wearing hoodies that depicted the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia. The clothes were being worn simply to cause division and anger. There's no other way around it. These kids knew they'd start a commotion by pimping offensive attire. One kid said, a lot of these students think that the flag stands for slavery and racism. And the Southern flag, I mean, it did fall into that, but it didn't stand for that. It stood for Southern states. First off, you don't even live in the South. Your comment is hogwash. Actually, kid, the flag very much stood for slavery. In the fear of losing political power in Washington over a lack of expansion of slavery. And to further dismantle a really, really stupid comment, the flag worn on your clothes is not the official flag of the Confederacy, not the official flag of that government, but rather the battle flag of Northern Virginia. Let's hope you're not an AP history class. These kids are not exhibiting any level of virtue. Liberty. Well, the very core of the secession was built around the Republican platform to halt the expansion of slavery in new states, thus flipping political, or rather in putting political power in the North, the industrialized states. Let's not pretend it was a battle about state rights. It wasn't. It really wasn't even about slavery. It was about political power, at least not slavery directly. Indirectly, it definitely was. It was about political power, and dagnabbit, if human liberty got in the way. Independence. This one's actually tricky. Whose independence? Your personal freedom to insult your fellow students with a flag which has been seen as a symbol of hate towards people who to this day deal with a certain level of prejudice? Even in this Yankee Doodle town, you do realize it wasn't long ago, like only maybe a year ago, that flyers were put up in local neighborhoods trying to reignite the KKK in the Pittsburgh area? Or are we talking about the independence of an entire race of people to think for themselves, vote, and make their own decisions? We've had a pretty bad track record here in this country of subjugating different people. First off, the Native Americans, then African Americans, then Japanese Americans, and now possibly Muslim Americans. I'll gladly place an attempt to provide values, the values that we claim we stand for as a nation, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to all human beings living in this republic over your right to wear a hate-filled hoodie any day. But alas, you have the freedom of expression, so I'll call this one a draw. At the end of the day, it all comes down to the parents. What kind of household exists that allows children to think it's okay to wear something to school to enrage other people and engage in hateful expression? To allow your children to have such a poor grasp of historical fact. In this instance, I blame the parents, not the kids. They're kids. They're impressionable, and you've left a bad impression. I wrote a haiku to surmise my feelings on the issue. Rebel flag attire stupid. Free speech does not excuse it. Parenting to blame. The superintendent, Timothy Glasspool, released a statement that says, "Today, 3 students arrived at Plum High School wearing Confederate flag clothing and or accoutrements. This attire is beginning to cause a disruption to the normal school routine." This is according to KDKA. After he did so little to stop Plum from becoming a brothel between students and faculty, I'm not so sure his opinion really holds much water. That is our holding, really the parents, I guess, accountable to the values of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's interesting. The Civil War was really a weird time. It really was a political battle more than anything. And there's so many things that happened in the Civil War that is misrepresented or really bad information that came out. And one good example is the idea that Lincoln wanted to free all the slaves. And I think he eventually wanted it to progress to a situation where maybe there would be freedom, but he actually never ran on the concept of freeing the slaves where slavery existed. His entire campaign was to stop the expansion of slavery into new states that were former territories of the United States. And really, it was a political grab in many ways. I'm not so sure that was maybe Lincoln's top priority, was to make it a political grab, but it was a political grab nonetheless. And the southern states, that's really, it was about politics in many ways. And Lincoln, with his Emancipation Proclamation, another interesting point, and Tara, feel free to chime in. I'm not sure if you're well versed in Civil War history.
At a time, I was.
Yeah, well, what is that buzz noise? It sounds almost like a drum. I felt like, we had the drum from the war. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Once I turn my mic on.
Okay, so it's something wrong with that cord. We'll figure it out. But anyways, the Emancipation Proclamation, it came about, again, that had to do with politics. Everyone believes that Lincoln came in and he freed all the slaves. Well, really, he didn't. The Emancipation Proclamation came about in an effort to stop the British from getting involved in the war on behalf of the South. The British were actually looking to get involved in the Civil War and come to the South's aid. And he basically did that in an attempt to try to thwart that. And he didn't really have the power to free slaves. What he did is he considered them contrabands of war, and he used that as a way to free them where the northern armies invaded in the South. So it's really an
Right, because it
interesting-
didn't it say that all slaves are free outside of the, like, if you're not, it
it
only
didn't-
affected the southern states, right?
It affected the
Effectively.
areas where rebel activity was
Okay, I
taking
gotcha,
place.
yeah.
So, but it's interesting. It's interesting how, but that's not what's really taught in history class. What's taught is, Lincoln came in and freed the slaves, and
Right.
there's just so much misrepresentation on both sides. And
It
then,
was
of course-
brilliant, though, right? Like,
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant because it made it impossible for the United Kingdom to come in on behalf of the southern states, because they wanted to partner up with the South.
they wanted that cotton.
They wanted that cotton, yes. But England they put a hard stance against slavery, and politically it would have been impossible for them to come on board and aid the South. So really, in many ways, the Emancipation Proclamation was a political ploy in order to keep Britain from entering the war. It was genius. It really was. It was really a genius move, and it really, I think, got the ball rolling to end slavery in the South. I had an interesting history professor, and he posed an interesting question about the Civil War, and I want to get your thoughts on this. It was really, I don't know what the right answer is, and he was a great professor. One of the best professors that I ever had. And he always gave these essay tests, and essays, usually people are like, oh no, essays. But he was not one of those. Wow, I think we just lost your mic. Okay. So I'll just monologue here for a few minutes, and then we'll go to a break. And maybe I'll pose this question, and if somebody wants to tweet me at RiverTalkPGH, you can answer the question, or you can hit us up on Facebook Live, and Tara can let me know if anybody responds. But he had us write in these essays, and he asked your opinion. And he wasn't one of those professors that tried to force-feed his thoughts into your mind. He didn't want you to parrot what he said. He wanted you to have your own opinion. And he actually said in class, and he meant it, that he enjoyed people who disagreed with him more than students who agreed with him. And because it forced him to think about things. All he required was, when you give your opinion, that you back it up with historical evidence to support your opinion. You could disagree with him, and that wouldn't change whether you got an A or a B or a C or a D, which is not the case in many college situations, unfortunately. But one of the questions he posed near the end of the year was, what brought about the modernization of the South? Was it A, the end of slavery, or was it B, the invention of air conditioning? And it's a serious question, because if you think about the North, everybody huddled into big cities, and big cities are hot. So we'll get back to that right after the break. You're listening to Pittsburgh's Voice for Local Music. Well, after yesterday, when everything worked at Hambones, you couldn't expect to have everything work twice in 1 week. But we've got Tara back. Luckily, we were quick to to move on that. So, Tara, my question,
Uh-huh.
what modernized and industrialized the South? Was it the end of slavery, or was it air conditioning? Not to lessen the value of the end of slavery.
Well,
because obviously-
modernization, that's a specific question. I don't know, air conditioning, probably. It's hot down there.
Yeah, because I feel like even with the end of slavery, I think you would have had a change in culture as far as the way people were treated, obviously, and how,
And the way businesses are run,
is
and the
run.
whole economy had to have changed.
But you wouldn't necessarily huddle into these giant cities, right?
Right.
So I think you may be right. I think it could be air conditioning. That's kind of the way I was leading.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's interesting the history we have. And people like to just completely pass over what happened to Japanese Americans in this country.
Do they like to just pass over it? I mean,
how many people do you speak to that never even heard of the internment camps? And there's so many people who don't even know that we had internment camps
That's disturbing.
in the United States.
I mean, we're not past the point of our follies, We're going to, like, keep doing stupid shit like that.
Well, there's one radio host who's been advocating for interning Muslims. And
It
frightens me the fact that
What's
somebody...
even the fact that is something that works? That's something, like, basing your ideas on fear is not proactive or, like, logical.
No, I mean, there's a difference between fear and being rational, and I think that we have a problem in this country of being so extreme one way or the other, where, it's either throw them in internment camps or don't even watch them. They're just let them do whatever they want. Well, it's like, no, if somebody's coming into this country, I don't even care what nationality they are. We're in such a weird, we live in such a weird world now, and warfare has changed with terrorism and things like that, that I feel personally anybody who comes into this country should be held to a certain level of observation, at least for a couple years. And I don't care if it's Muslim or if it's Irish or whatever. I just think that we live in a society, not a society, but a world where, this kind of stuff goes on. And I don't think it's unreasonable to check in on somebody over the next few years when they migrate to this country until they're settled in. And then they get to a point where, we have seen them, they're a productive member of society, and then you let them...
But why are you just considered a wholesome, good person if you were born here, who doesn't need to be, like, monitored or whatever? Why is it only people coming into this country?
Well, you are a citizen and you have rights. But
yeah.
if you aren't necessarily a citizen yet, it's a different...
Then we should be afraid of you.
You still have rights. Not necessarily, but I don't think it's unreasonable to check in on somebody and just see what's going on and make sure everything's kosher.
Yeah, and I would assume there's something in place like that, or,
But as soon as somebody mentions that, it's, oh, you're a xenophobe, or you're a racist, or you're a hater.
Right.
Or...
I mean,
People are just so polarized that you can't even have a discussion.
I want nice open borders. That's the way I feel about it, honestly.
Yeah, I am not for open borders. I'm on the opposite side of that
I think people want to come here and work. People want to go. I think that's an important part of it, too. It's like coming... and working, and then, like, not everyone wants to live here. I think we also have that idea in our heads that everyone in the world wants to come live in America, and that's not necessarily true. People like living where they live, too.
But at the same time, is it right that someone comes in here and works here and collects the revenue here, but then doesn't invest back into the country where they're taking that profit from?
Yeah, I think if you pay your taxes, you're all good.
But you don't pay the same level of taxes if you...
Do you not?
No,
you don't have to pay the same taxes? Like, I mean,
absolutely
if you don't,
not. You don't pay property taxes.
Sure.
You don't pay... There's plenty of taxes that you can avoid by not living here.
Because you're not...
Many places don't even have an occupation tax.
Because you don't own property, though.
True, but you're also
you pay taxes to have the right to have property, for example.
But you're also using the roads that can come through those taxes, and you're also... taking advantage of the parks if you're, at work and you decide to take a walk through the park. You're using a lot of services that other people are now providing
that they pay through their property tax or whatever.
That you're now, in a way, and that's like the ultimate form of leeching, in my opinion. I just think that, maybe we should go towards an occupation tax and maybe get away from property taxes and things like that. Maybe that would be a solution to,
that's a cool
that
idea.
problem. I just don't necessarily think it's fair that somebody could just come in here and use our resources and then live outside of the country. But I mean, really, I don't think that's even a realistic thing to really hold on to or really fathom because of the size of our country. It's a little bit different in Europe, where you have a lot of small countries and things like that.
People come and go.
Yeah, but I mean, in the United
train.
States, I mean, it would be hard to have a job in, I don't know, Seattle and live in Mexico. You know, it's just, it is a bit of a distance that you would have to overcome to make that possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, or even New York City, really. I mean, you look at some of the areas where would be a hub of international travelers, and it's not necessarily accessible to come and go as you please. So
no, it's definitely not.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think.
Interesting. Well, we are at 11, so let's cue the weird news music. We'll go through this weird news story that I promised at the beginning of the show, and then we'll wrap things up. We fought through the technological issues, and we've made it this far. Austin Health Department, according to the Associated Press, workers hung bags of condoms and information about safe sex from trees at a park without informing their bosses or the local park department, according to newspaper reports. The bag in Walnut Creek Park, which has been pointed to a place of HIV transmission, particularly among gay men, was taken down Thursday, the Austin American-Statesman reported. So, bags of condoms hanging from trees. What an interesting sight.
I think it's good.
You think it's good?
Yeah. You gotta get the word out there.
That is one way to get the word out there. It is, shock and awe will definitely spread the message.
Be kind to the trees, though.
Yes, definitely be kind to the trees. I concur. That's one thing that's nice about living here in the city, I will say. Pittsburgh does a very good job of providing green spaces within the actual metropolitan area.
Yeah, I live right by Arsenal Park. And I walk through there like every day. I love Pittsburgh. It's beautiful.
Well, even downtown, the Gateway Plazas, I don't know if you know this, it is the first, I believe it could be reversed, but let me see if I get this right. I think it's the first publicly funded green space on a private on private land.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. I think because Shenley Park was a similar.
Well, Shenley Park was.
It was a
private
private.
Land. It was a private land that was donated to the city. That actually has gone on in many places. Heartwood Acres is another example of that. Actually, Heartwood Acres is pretty interesting because Heartwood Acres is a situation where the lady who owned the land and the house was in bad health, and she wanted to donate it as a park. But she made it a requirement that she was able to live there throughout the rest of her days, even though it was going to be owned by the local municipality.
So where's her house?
It's in the middle of the park, and it's turned into a museum. It's a beautiful house.
That's cool.
Really, really cool. So I mean, she's long gone, but the house still remains, and it's interesting. They actually use cork insulation in that house. It's a beautiful house.
Cool.
And they were actually married. She was married, the lady who donated the property, in the Presbyterian Church in East Liberty, that huge, massive Presbyterian church.
Looks like a big sandcastle.
Yes, which you've never been in there, you definitely got to check it out. That's it for me. Today is Monday. We've got Mike Sasson tomorrow at 10 a.m. And we've got Matt Gajtka. He's going to be in Wednesday night for a special Penguins post-game show. So stay tuned for that. That's it for me. Up next, we have local music here on the River's Edge.